Every man carries four forces within him: the warrior, the king, the magician, and the lover. But most are ruled by one and unaware of the rest. So mastering them isn't self help, it's initiation. Hi, this is Greg Swanson, and welcome back to another episode of the Warrior Mind podcast, where today we're going to take a brief look at the male archetypes. This is actually the hidden blueprint of strength and balance. The archetypes are something that came around from Carl Jung. He came up with 12 archetypes, and many people have. Carolyn Meese has worked with them, and other people have worked with these. These are the four male archetypes, according to Robert Moore, who is a Jungian psychologist, that every man needs to embrace to be mature, conscious, and awake male. So this is just going to be a brief overview of them, but I go into much more detail with these when I coach with my clients, looking for them to embrace one of these four and at which particular time, and actually all four of them, right? So at birth, really, no one knows how to be a man. We just don't, right? We're born and that's it. We learned about masculinity from male role models around us, whether it's our father, our uncle, our brothers, TV, people, right? We just observe and we mimic that. But today, the quality of manhood has been diminished and diminished terribly. This has brought about the masculinity crisis. Not being an a-hole, not being a jerk, but just being a man and knowing what you want and being able to stand for your convictions, as opposed to being wishy-washy, not running, have any not ruffling any feathers, or even to the extreme is just being so emotional that you can't take action on anything, right? There is a crisis of masculinity that is subjecting men into a significant hurt due to stereotyped expectations from society. And there are so many, and they run deep into our society, into our culture, into our memes, into our beliefs. And and these really aren't ones that support a conscious, aware male. It's vital to identify what men want to make them feel like men and realize false substitutes to masculinity. And this can be being a tyrant, being a bully, right? All those things, punching, fighting. We want to protect ourselves, but not aggressively do this, right? It's like there's a difference between assertive and aggressive, right? Assertive is confidence, aggressive is cowardness and brutality. So there's an inner conflict of modern men, right? Most men live disconnected from their inner archetypes. They're paying so much attention to projecting to the outside world what it feels the outside world wants them to be as a man, and they completely lose touch with this powerful energetic properties of these four archetypes. Over identification with one archetype leads to burnout and imbalance. And this applies to any of the 12. I'm not going to go through all the 12 here, but if you want, you can look up Carl Jung archetypes. There are many of them, right? There's the innocent, um, there's the care giver, there's the warriors. We're going to talk about the king. There's all these different archetypes. But if a person embraces one and one only, and there's two sides to it, right? There's the stronger side, the tyrant side, and the weak side is the crybaby. But we want to be in the middle of it. So we want to be able to, one, have access to multiple archetypes, and two, know that we are in the middle of it and not too aggressive and not too weak. The challenge is reclaiming inner harmony between strength, wisdom, emotion, and purpose. And this is what these four male archetypes will help every man when he gets to understand them and embrace them. So here's the hero's journey, right? The male journey is not linear. It's cyclical, like the hero's journey, right? You're called to the adventure, you get your guardian, you get your mentor, you get your allies, you fight the dragon, then you come back home. And then you do that over and over and over again. And that's the same with the male journey. It's just not like, okay, you're 18, you're a man, or 21, you're a man. No, there are emotional and in spiritual and physical and mental practices that go into transitioning from being a boy psychology to having man psychology. In my experience at Nine Gates Mystery School was one of the areas where it was first revealed to me this concept of archetypes, and working with some of the mentors and teachers there, was able to understand how powerful these archetypes run deep into all of our lives, whether we know it or not. We don't they are there. But the purpose of this podcast and the purpose of my experience with Nine Gates is to be able to summon, if you will, those archetypes depending on the situation that I am in, and being able to use their assets to the benefit of me and the other people with me. So, each man must face his shadow before embodying his full power. And the shadow is anything that we have denied, according to Carl Jung. It doesn't mean it's a evil or bad. It's those things that we have denied. Your greatness you have denied, your whatever, your generosity you denied. All those are shadow. They're kept pushed down within our psyche, and we need to address those shadows, which is part of our archetypes, until we can embody its full power. So there's the warrior archetype. There's a shadow side, which you could be called, a mercenary or a soldier of fortune. And when you start to embrace it and understand that shadow type, it turns to more of the warrior, the samurai, if you will, and then you can embody its full power. So what I'm going to do now is go through the four, again, very high level archetypes, and let you resonate with them. And if you want to go deeper, please reach out to a coach. Specifically, reach out to me. And I work with archetypes a great deal with men and women, but these are mainly male archetypes. So the first one is the warrior, right? And the warrior is about discipline and direction, not motivation, not willpower, but discipline. Discipline comes from having routine. You have a routine, you follow it. Direction, you know where you're going, right? So the warrior, when you embrace that warrior, it embodies courage, focus, and structure. So if you're feeling out of sorts, if you don't have any structure to your day, if you're wandering around, we would talk about how can you tap into that warrior energy? How can you focus more? What can you do? And it's really powerful when you think of that warrior energy. Is you can even think of some fictional characters or real characters, and notice how they exhibit this courage, focus, and structure, and then you can mirror that in your own life, and that would effectively start to wake up that warrior if it's not awake yet, right? And it fights for a purpose, not an ego. So the purpose is defined, which we'll get into a little bit later here, is the king. So the king defines purpose, but the warrior is fights, if you want to call it fights, acts on purpose or for purpose. It doesn't act for the ego to get accolades and acknowledgments and rewards. The warrior does it for the purpose of it. So if you're looking at doing things and you're doing it strictly for the money, that might be a mercenary warrior. If you're doing it for the purpose that you have here in life, that's more of the middle warrior or the powerful warrior. And here's part of the danger, right? Overdrive leads to aggression and exhaustion, right? We cannot always be in the warrior state of mind. We cannot always go 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 go. We will lead to aggression, which we get because we get irritated because we're going all the time and we're not getting what we want. So we need to make sure we balance that action oriented with rest and relaxation. And so, what the practice for this one is to channel discipline through awareness and aligned intention, meaning what is your intention for this part of the day? You could say, what's my intention for this hour? What's my intention for the morning? What's my intention? And bring awareness to what you're going to do and take action with it. When you notice yourself to start scrolling or getting sidetracked by shiny objects, you go, nope, discipline. I have the warrior. I'm staying attuned to what I'm supposed to do. So now let's take a look at the king, right? Sovereignty and service. It represents order, leadership, and responsibility. The king in your life, or the royal in your life takes responsibility for everything in your life. If you start pointing your finger elsewhere, you're playing the other archetype, which is a victim. But here you want to represent order. You want to keep order and peace within your domain, whether that's your house, your family, your work. And you want to exhibit this leadership, right? The leadership of a king, of a royal is there. And then the responsibility for all his kingdom or all your kingdom, right? It's responsibility. It's not like, well, that guy messed up. Well, that guy messed up because of something you did or didn't do. And when we can start to take responsibility for our kingdom, we then see people appreciating us and doing things that, that help with the kingdom itself. And I use that word kingdom in quotes because that kingdom could be your house, it could be your community, it could be any group of individuals that you are involved in. And the king also balances authority with compassion. It just doesn't bark out orders. So if you're just barking out orders to your team at work or to your family, you're the shadow side, which is the tyrant. And if you were just compassion, like it's okay, we don't this, then you would be the weakling, if you will. But we want to balance that. So you need to have that authority. And when things don't go that well, you need to have compassion and understand why they didn't go that well. Maybe not accepting it, but then asking, how can you do better next time to ensure you complete this task, right? So there's this balance of authority and compassion. And the wounded king, right? It's the tyrant or the weakling, right? If you're so much of authority, you're the tyrant. If you're so much compassion, you're the weakling. So that would be the wounded king, meaning that the shadow side has been suppressed. And so now for the practice for the king is take ownership of your life and rule your inner kingdom first. So that means that you are responsible for the emotions you feel. You are responsible for the self-talk. You are responsible for all that happens within you. That's the king taking ownership of your life. First, you have to take ownership of your internal kingdom before you start to take ownership of your external kingdom, whether that's your team at work, whether that's your coworkers, whether that's your family, whether that's your friends. Master yourself internally first, then you can master your relationships with others externally. So then we get to the magician, and this is about insight and transformation, right? The archetype of awareness, intuition, and mastery. Man, I love that word mastery and then the intuition, how often have we been as men just suppress it because we think it's a foo-foo emotion. Oh, it's foo-foo, it's this, it's that. No, intuition is real. It's very, very real. And our awareness about things, we're not just blindly heading off somewhere to do something. We are aware of what we are doing. And this is the magician transform your knowledge into wisdom. Knowledge is knowing what to do. Then you take action and you get feedback. Then you have wisdom. And part of that transformation is the warrior, right? Because the warrior takes action. So you have knowledge, you take action, you get feedback. Now you have wisdom. Now you know what to do the next time around. So we want to know the difference between knowledge and wisdom and how we transform knowledge into wisdom. And so the shadow side, right, it could be the shadow side of the magician is manipulation or paralysis through analysis, meaning we manipulate people to our own benefit by bringing awareness to them. Like, oh, if you did this, it'd be great for me. If you did that, it'd be great for me. So the magician can manipulate people. That's the dark side. Or they just get so caught up with paralysis through analysis that they don't transfer that knowledge into wisdom. And so the practice for the magician is integrate learning with conscious reflection and stillness. So whether it's learning something from a book, learning something from a video, then you consciously reflect, like, what does this mean? How can I apply this to my life? How have I been applying this to my life? And then sitting, be quiet and listening to that intuition about how integrating a particular knowledge that you're trying to learn. So now we come to the fourth one, and that is the lover. And this is about emotion and connection. It embodies passion, empathy, and creativity. This one is like the fire inside of you, right? It brings fire to life, right? It's strength through vulnerability and feeling deeply. So if you're always in the lover, you probably don't get a lot of things done because you need the warrior to get things done. But if you're always being vulnerable, thinking if you are being vulnerable so that somebody likes you, that's not authentic. That would be the magician manipulating. If you're vulnerable because you want people to see the true you, it's a different story. And feeling deeply just about not yourself, but the other people. But if you can't feel deeply about yourself, remember getting back down to the previous archetypes about feeling deeply about mastering your own kingdom, the king archetype. You need to be able to sit and feel deeply so that you can connect to that lover energy. And the shadow side, right, this is addiction because it's so passionate that addiction can happen, whether it's addiction to work, addiction to sex, addiction to drugs, addiction to gambling, whatever it is, it's that jazz that we get from that passion and creativity. And the other part of the shadow is the opposite side, right? Is emotional avoidance, just shutting down and not doing anything. Or a unhealthy way is codependency. So the lover can show up in different ways, and it is showing up in your life, but is it showing up healthy or is it showing up unhealthy? And so the practice for the lover is express emotion through art, maybe touch, nature, authenticity. You can express your emotions a lot of ways. It doesn't have to be just yelling and words, right? You can express your emotions through nature. You go out to nature, you see a beautiful sunrise and you start to weep or you feel awe, or you can be authentic. There are many, many ways. And so these practices that I've gone through for the four archetypes, I would actually really challenge you to write them down and see how you can practice each one daily. There's four archetypes, and you can divide your day into four segments or do 4 days. One day is the king, one day is the warrior, one day is the lover, one day is the magician. So now what we want to do is integrate the four archetypes. The goal isn't perfection here, it's balance or actually harmony. Because one day we may need the warrior for the full day. The next day we may need the king and the lover. Then the next day we may need the magician and the lover. So you want to pay attention to where your energy is, and it's not perfection, it's balance and or harmony, right? So the warrior acts, the king governs, the magician guides, and the lover connects. Those are some of the things. So acts, action, governs, sets rules, the magician guides life, and the lover connects with other people. Right? Integration creates alignment physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And that's what we're about, right? Is that alignment. So the conscious warrior path. The modern man's journey is eternal from dominance to presence. That's part of this conscious warrior's path that I've been talking about for several podcasts now. Integration brings clarity, it brings purpose and emotional freedom. All of those things wrapped up. And it's by working with these four archetypes. These archetypes you have access to. Get rid of the victim archetype. Get rid of the other ones and work with these four. If you're a man listening to this, if you're a woman, have your man listen to this. But when you start to integrate these four archetypes, you'll be on your way to the conscious warrior's path. And the challenge is embodying all four archetypes daily through awareness and practice. So if you're about to go into a meeting, you may say, what archetype would serve me better? Would it be the lover archetype with connecting all the people in the meeting? Is the warrior archetype by taking action? Or is it the king archetype for setting boundaries and rules? Whatever that is, start to embody it, right? So here's some final thoughts. Every man walks the hero's path from ignorance to awareness, chaos to order, isolation to connection. Everyone does. The male archetypes are just not abstract psychology. They're the map for that journey. Those are the signposts, if you will, to take you on your journey to the hero's path, the conscious warrior's path. And if you're feeling off center, That's your initiation. This shouldn't feel comfortable embracing these. It should be completely different because you haven't embraced these archetypes consciously. So it's going to feel strange. And that is good because that's your initiation. Your mission now isn't to fix yourself, it's to integrate yourself. So there's nothing wrong. It's just better integration and harmony of these archetypes. If you want to see the show notes on this podcast, you can visit warriormindcoach.com. While you're over there, you can find some more useful information in the form of podcast, blog post, as well as how to book your power strategy call. Since you'll be on the internet, please follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest, all under Warrior Mind Coach.